It's much better, in my opinion, for you to be inside an organization, build your own brand and your awareness inside that organization and in the industry that you're in before you venture off.
Welcome to Reimagining You, the podcast where we dive deep into stories of visionary builders reshaping the future. Today, we have Fouad Jeryes. Fouad is the co-founder and chief business officer of Maqsam, renowned as MENA's friendliest Arabic AI-powered cloud communication suite.
I've always wanted to get my hands dirty, build things, go down a path that is unconventional. And within that path, you're going to find very unconventional situations that are going to come around to you and play out in ways that you don't expect.
Seems like this Gen Z don't want to have any employment. What do you think, Fouad?
It makes it look much easier than it really is, but building a business is really hard. Unfortunately, within reality, are more likely if you go through a bunch of different failures, and you will find lots of painful scenarios until you get to a more likely scenario of some success that you'll get.
You're not active very much on LinkedIn. Why?
You see a lot of people who have attention, but it's not about attention, right? Impact is something that you really own. It's all about impact.
What's your purpose on LinkedIn?
Sometimes silence between particular data points is more meaningful than just a lot of noise without proper signal.
Welcome to Reimagining You, the podcast where we dive deep into stories of visionary builders reshaping the future. Today, we have a trailblazer whose journey spans startup ecosystems, accelerator floors, and SaaS innovation across MENA. Fouad Jeryes. Welcome, Fouad.
Thank you, Dr. Ali.
Fouad is the co-founder and chief business officer of Maqsam, renowned as MENA's friendliest Arabic AI-powered cloud communication suite, built to redefine customer service with an Arabic-first experience. Earlier in his career, he helped launch Jordan's first tech accelerator, Oasis 500, building mentor and angel networks for its first 50 startups. He's also the co-founder of Alpha Apps, creator of Cash Basha, a platform once praised by Jeff Bezos that shook up cross-border e-commerce before stepping down into 2025 amid regulatory challenges. Fun fact, though, I was searching a little bit about you, Fouad, and long before your SaaS success, you have fronted a band that played 170 shows in just 2 years? Tell me more about it.
Rumors are true. Yes. So ever since I was a kid, I had this fantasy. I saw some guitar gods playing on the TV, and always thought that would be an amazing thing to do. But I was surrounded in an environment where I had my mother, who was an educator, and my father, who was an engineer, and that environment showed me the reality of what I could do and what I could build. Learning from them, I learned programming at a very young age from my father, and had ambitions from my mother to grow businesses and do things like that as well. But in my heart, I always imagined that I would be a touring guitarist one day. Sometime after work, me and a bunch of guys who all had startups in Amman at the time, we all, had a few instruments that we wanted to play. We started jamming after hours, and then, a little joke turned into something serious. And we said, hey, let's play one show and just cross this off the bucket list. And then that one show turned into a stream of 170 shows. We played for free the first time, and then they said, hey, why don't you come back next week and we'll pay you. And so this became a nice story for us. We lived out a bit of a dream there.
Nice. Good story. So I'm going to take you back. I mean, you look very young. I mean, I'm probably twice your age. But even when you were even younger, you started with a lot of ideas around the tech industry. What made you so credible back then?
It's about tinkering. I come from a background of, as I mentioned, my father was really an engineer who loved tinkering, and it was just his ambition and his inspiration that, led me towards wanting to learn more about technology. Even back in the days, you said I was half your age. I think, I'm a bit older than that, and you're not giving yourself enough credit here. But my father had a workshop basically at home. He used to be soldering, circuit boards and doing a little bit of programming.
Like my father, pretty much, actually.
Oh yeah. So that inspiration really led me to want to be like him and really put myself into technology. And back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, everybody was like, okay, computer science is where you should be going. Computers are the future, and that's the world that we live in today. We depend so much on these machines, and knowing how to learn the language and be inside that ecosystem inspired me. When I grew up a little bit more, some hardships that my family had experienced. We were in the States at the time. Post the Gulf War, there was a big recession. My father ended up losing his
Mm.
job, and I was inspired by entrepreneurship. I didn't know what the word meant, but I knew that somebody could own their own business. And through some attempts that I saw my father actually try out, I wanted to do my own. And since I was surrounded by technology at that time, back in the day, internet before many of the other late adopters, my father being an early adopter of some of these technologies, maybe a CD burner before anyone else, I combined both together, started pirating basically CDs and music and selling it to my
Ooh.
friends and
Okay.
and then sending it around. So that led me to kind of get more into being bitten by the bug and wanting to build businesses around technology. And that's to put it shortly. Many other
Mm.
attempts led me to getting more serious during my college years, and then thereafter being involved in about five businesses so far in my lifetime.
So I didn't complete the introduction, but one question: have you worked for somebody?
Technically, no. Technically, no. I've been a full-time consultant, if you will, if that's employment, but for a few outfits around the region. But I have been mostly entrepreneurial for over 90% of my career. I do think that me wanting to start out in the entrepreneurship landscape, not learning from within an organization, had a bit of a risk there, and maybe a price that I had to pay to kind of ease into many of the things that I could have learned on somebody else's tab. But otherwise, no regrets, even though it was a bit painful at the start. But I do believe that people working inside organizations and being even managed by someone else makes a good model, especially you have a great mentor or a good manager, makes a good model for you to be able to learn the good habits and then lay them on to someone else as they work with you.
I was going to hint on that actually and capture that because for our viewers and audience, do we tell them don't worry about taking a job? Just if you have the entrepreneurial spirit, just go straight out of college and start a business, go work for somebody, or don't even think about entrepreneurship. It's too much work. Stay in the corporate world, climb the ladder, and stay there. What do you think? Quick break from the conversation. If you're listening to this, it means you care about building your success through your personal brand. And I have something for you. I've created a free masterclass that shows you exactly how to unlock your influence and position yourself for the next chapter of your career. The link is right below this episode. It's completely free. Enjoy watching. And now let's get back to the episode.
I think it really depends on the person, right? So some people are predisposed to, in their environment, to wanting to start something on their own and build something. Some people are excellent entrepreneurs in residence within an organization and being entrepreneurial with building something, but not having to be, the person who's taking on most of the stress and the responsibility of building out an organization. They're very effective there. And some people do very well as employees, regular everyday employees who want to have time that is for their own and really depends on what a person prefers. For me, I think I've always wanted to get my hands dirty, build things, go down a path that is maybe unconventional. And within that path, you're going to find very unconventional situations that are going to come around to you and really play out in ways that you don't expect. They're very hard lessons to learn. You're going to, face yourself every day in the mirror and say, "What the hell am I doing?" Or some days you're going to say, "Oh my God, this is the most amazing thing." It's very cyclical of a roller coaster ride. I mean, that's cliche now today. Everybody knows in the entrepreneurship scene. But I do think that people have the right to, if they have the itch, to at least try at the right point in time. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, it's much better, in my opinion, for you to be inside an organization, build your own brand and your awareness inside that
Yes.
organization and in the industry that you're in before you venture off. Because one of the big things that increase the chances of your entrepreneurial success is obviously the people that are around you in the beginning, whether they are your nearest investors, your nearest partners, your future customers perhaps or employees, but being able to build some clout within a safe environment, especially if it's the right one for you, will allow you to succeed more as an entrepreneur and gain some skills further on. So one thing that I did a little bit of is obviously through a lot of the long-term consulting arrangements that I had and positions that I had within companies. They gave me a lot of that early credibility, but also beyond that, it's a lot of the extracurricular activities that you can do that can really blow up in a way that can actually give you some more exposure.
Good. You're reading my mind because I wanted to bring in a couple of chapters from my book, Reimagining You, right? So
So
this is a 10-step process. And first of all, I mean, you'll have to define your mission. So if you have that entrepreneurship itch, as you said, that could weaved into a mission. However, on your game, you need to be credible. Granted, you're going to stand up in front of investors. And if you don't have
absolutely.
that experience, I mean, typically any startup before anything, they look at the team versus the idea. And the team carries 75% of the weight for any, angel investor in the beginning, right? So if you don't have that pedigree, that convincing tone, that technical terms, or whatever that you might have, you might not be able to get any funds. That's one. Number two, thinking at what you said, it's better to be at an employment and start working on your personal brand. And that's what I advise everybody. Get your first 2 years, learn the trade, get the learning on somebody else's dime, but also work on your personal brand and your idea till you have enough baggage, and then you start balancing the facts, and then you plan your exit to continue on the momentum. I had actually two, well, really one guest on the podcast, Wissam Sabah, that did exactly like you. From university, went up, and he's very successful, but he shared quite a bit of wisdom and lessons along the way. And if we would have redone it again, probably would have worked for maybe 2 or 3 years. My son did the same. My son is 25, 26 now. He worked for 2 years and now he's in the startup world. Seems like this Gen Z don't want to have any employment. What do you think, Fuad?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, the year I went into college in Boston, Massachusetts, right around the corner from me was Mark Zuckerberg at Harvard, just starting out with Facebook. And that started a big spark within the celebritization of entrepreneurship amongst youngsters
Mm,
and really changed things for a lot of people. That you can really do something very, very impactful and, be off to the races and build $1 billion company in no time. It makes it look much easier than it really is, but building a business is really hard, and that story is one out of a billion stories that actually ended up in failure. It's something that you really need to consider and weigh out. I mean, I think the chances of success, unfortunately, within reality, are more likely if you go through a bunch of different failures. And sometimes growth, whether it's personal or on your brand or even professionally, is disguised as pain. And you will find lots of painful scenarios until you get to a more likely scenario of some success that you'll get to. I've gone through, me and my partner Sinan, we've done many different businesses and many different trials and errors before you actually get to a successful attempt. And there's so many cliche examples out there that we all know of people who've tried many different things to find a solution to a one big $1 billion idea that actually worked. But
mm,
during that time, I think getting started out, and whether you're Gen Z or even after that, one very important thing is having mentors that can give you the direction. And sometimes there's a rebellion against advice that comes from your nearest
of
relative or your
course.
parent or what have you. And I do think it's very important for you to find a inspirational character that can really give you insight and exposure and access sometimes into a world that you don't expect. And for me, in my early career days, that was a person named Dr. Osama Fayyad. He was the chief data officer at Yahoo. He was the guy that practically coined the term data mining, which is a massive
Yeah.
field that is now, with the world of AI, exploded even further. He had worked at Yahoo, Barclays Bank, been at Microsoft, at NASA. He had inspirational work that I had studied back in college. I had the chance to meet him. He happened to be a Palestinian Jordanian, and through the very small 2 points of separation instead of six that we have here in the Levant, maybe to actually reach another person, I was able to reach out to him and work with him for many years at one of his companies. And he was a mentor and a great manager that gave me access to projects at some of the biggest Silicon Valley companies in the world,
Nice.
Google and Verizon and others. And so being able to be close to people who will give you the good habits and the access and the ambition of what is possible really, I think, gets you in the right place to one day potentially at some point get to success. Obviously, statistics tell you that success happens in business at least, or your professional life at the age of 45, around the age of 45, and not at the age of 18 like Zuckerberg had.
This is one off. Let's not copy because we won't be able to copy.
Sir.
Let me ask you a question here, if you don't mind sharing with the viewers and audience, or challenging question or two from early investors. What were they?
A challenging question to us from early investors. It really depends on which business we're talking about here. But let's take one of our previous business, Cash Basha. So one of the things that we've done with Cash Basha is really open up for the majority of unserviced customers in our region, the Middle East and North African region, is access to items that they would like to buy from international websites that don't serve this part of the world. And one big thing that we did that ended up in the success of the company is we stood on the shoulders of giants, on the shoulders of these big companies in the US who had credibility but weren't servicing the rest of the world. And so we were able to leverage their brand and their brand awareness into our own brand as a company by solving the problem that the customers wanted, because they did want to pay in cash, have the
Mm,
item delivered to their doorstep, solve things with customs, with payments, with customer service. And all those solutions that we built around them were very valuable solutions that could be applied to any other business. We
yeah.
were just dedicating them to one business at the time. And we went to investors and we wanted to tell them that, hey, we want to build a venture builder. So we have multiple different technologies all working together in unison to provide this 10 times better experience to shoppers in this part of the world that anybody could end up using and taking advantage of. So investors told us, well, hey, isn't it better to focus on one thing and be just a one trick pony rather than have all these multiple different parts?
Hmm.
Nobody wanted to invest in a company that did too much, and it wasn't in fashion at the time. 10 years prior to that, everybody was wanted to build this one company that was a conglomerate. But now there was specialization, and that was one thing that they questioned about us. What would happen if Amazon does come to the region, or if the
Mm,
rug was swept under your feet? For us, why did they invest in our company eventually? Is because we were able to give them authenticity within our messaging and authenticity within the actual business that we had, within the customer reactions that we had. And we were able to actually leapfrog all the way from a small country here in Jordan to Seattle, Washington, to actually connect with the headquarters of Amazon itself and some of the other players that we were dealing with. And once we were able to do that, they saw that there was actual real value and not smoke and mirrors that really led nowhere. So we gained credibility on one side, and they gave us their trust, and that's how we went through it.
beautiful story. Beautiful story. All right, now let's talk about a startup versus scaling up. Now, you don't have any employment experience as per se. You haven't had any employees to manage, no structure to report to, except your investors. So now you have employees. What makes you a good leader?
Well, it's really the team. We lead as a team. We don't lead as one individual today at a business. And between Sinan and myself, I mean, we've had different experiences. We have complementary experiences, and we've known how to, thankfully, bring people with like-minded attitudes towards business and growth together. And I do believe in my heart that good people always find each other and always want to collaborate. As a leader, I think one thing that makes me powerful, not just as a leader, as I think as a human being in general, is vulnerability. We do not
Mm,
shy away from actually speaking our hearts and speaking who we are and whatever we're going through. We have an open forum inside the company, whether it has to be private or it is even, in more public spaces amongst the 100 plus employees that we have across the countries that we work in today. We have different venues in a flat hierarchy, a flat organization with no hierarchy, rather, that allows people to open up, and we promote vulnerability as a way to growth, not as a way to limit people from being their human selves.
and what is this lunch hour laughter? I read it somewhere.
Lunch hour laughter. I mean, I'm not sure what lunch hour laughter is, but in general, we really have principles when it comes to how we conduct ourselves at work, and we have principles of culture on our website that at maqsam.com that we really live by religiously as a company. and as professionals. And during lunch hour, we have a lot of open discussions about many things that might be funny, might be introspective even at times, and might be controversial even further. But the best part of the day is lunch for us here, at least when we're not working.
Yeah, well, blame ChatGPT on he coined this as lunchtime
I
laughter.
thought so. I thought so. I thought so.
No, it's very good. If I recap a little bit, I mean, you've been through several startups. You've learned through failures. You've grown. The way you manage the organization is remarkable. The way now modern organizations are managed, not the old traditional ways where you have structures and organization charts
Right.
and various reporting lines that are rigid, not flexible. You went into the flat one. I like the two words that you mentioned, authenticity and vulnerability, which are great traits for leadership in general. And the future of what we call it, the modern leadership, is now coined by authenticity, vulnerability, adaptability. And for us at our age, we also have an additional one called unlearning to relearn from you guys. So we have to shed some of the old ways that they don't serve us anymore, and start being humble and learn from you guys in the workplace. That's one for the senior leaders that are listening or watching us, right?
Yeah, but nonetheless, I mean, we learned from the people who have come before us and actually opened up the way for us to be able to do what we do today. When you read leadership books in general, now me as leading a company, one of the main themes that you find across all these big professionals is that it's all about impact, right? How can you be an impactful human being or leader? And what you
Yeah.
see a lot of, maybe I'm going to be a bit kind of judgmental towards our region, hypothetically, is that you see a lot of people who have attention, but it's not about attention, right? So attention is kind of rented in this world, but impact is something that you really own. I think if you can impact an employee at an individual level, even, that has a much larger ripple effect around how people view every single event that you had with that person, how you manage your team overall, and you manage the culture inside the company. And so you need to have kind of clarity of purpose, and that'll outshine the quantity of any particular attention or posts that you find on LinkedIn and praises that happen left and right on social media. Attention and personal brand and all this is the shadow of all these daily decisions that you take, and how
Mhm.
you can really make a difference in the organization and how you're conducting your company and how you're spending your own career time.
And coupled with that, some emotional intelligence and empathy to your people, to the people around you. I think
Yeah.
it goes a long way. Fuad, you're not active very much on LinkedIn. Why?
I would consider myself to be pretty active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I write on a monthly basis on LinkedIn, long form posts talking about my career, my own vulnerability actually on LinkedIn. I do some posts about career accomplishments, other people who have actually, my colleagues and peers in the community that have made amazing achievements. I like to write on that here and there sometimes. Am I updating my profile every other day? Probably not. I have a lot more on a day-to-day basis. It's exciting for me inside the company that I care about and takes me away from being in poster child on LinkedIn, so
Yeah.
you will.
So why do you post on LinkedIn, whatever you're posting, your achievement, stuff like that? What's your purpose on LinkedIn? What are you trying to achieve with
Well,
LinkedIn?
presence is important, obviously. You're seeing a lot of people who are giving off a lot of noise, and I think sometimes silence between particular data points is more meaningful than just a lot of noise without proper signal. And so, what I'm trying to achieve on LinkedIn is being present with my peers, telling them about some of the new advancements that we have, some new achievements that we've made as a company, but also more so talking about my own personal experiences. I'm trying to naturally, then this is who I am for the people who know me, talk about some of the tough times that I've been through as an entrepreneur, some of the ways that this has affected my life, both positively and negatively, some of the experiences I've been through in my personal life, not just my professional life, and how I think it could be hopefully useful to other people. I remember at the beginning of the year, I pledged to write one long form post on LinkedIn every month, and I've succeeded so far at doing that. But I used to blog much more earlier on Medium and other places, and I missed it while focusing on my startup. And I think it's always important for you to reflect and working in public, reflecting in public, being able to build in public as well, are all things that pay back to you and the community around you.
So if I draw an analogy for a corporate person,
Mhm.
so a corporate person sits in the shadows. That's the problem. He is or she is hiding in a comfort trap. A business card, a title, EVP, CFO,
Yeah,
SVP, president, whatever, with a nice company name. And granted, this would open doors. They would ask for a meeting, it goes and open doors.
yeah,
Problem is when they leave their employment, and if they have not develop their personal brand, they become a PIP. And a PIP is previously important person. They become pretty much a bit of a nobody and then they cannot open
yeah,
doors. So my
sure,
advice always to start working on your personal brand and get to be, because your knowledge, your value, your ideas, your thought leadership is for you. You have the IP, not your company. And it's good to make
absolutely.
it visible and make sure that people recognize you. I mean, you just told me from the way that you approach LinkedIn and Medium, you're right about your thought leadership, about your achievement, about the areas where you feel expert in or you want to share with the world. So if I were to ask three of your best friends and colleagues, give me the first three things that come to mind about Fuad in business. What would they say?
That's a tough one. I think they would talk about my willingness to persevere as the top one. I don't give up very easily. Sometimes we have a lot of discussions, Sinan and I, my co-founder, about giving up. And I've learned how to give up at the right time and under the right conditions, which is super important because sometimes if you stay so adamant about getting something done or flipping it around, it doesn't end up the way that you want. So you're much better actually going off somewhere else. So I would say perseverance. The second word would be ambition, the massive ambition to do big things. And hopefully it comes from our region, making them grassroots. Always dreamt and lived in the future in my mind. Third one would be honesty and hopefully vulnerability. Those
Nice.
are the three things that I think would be there. In building a personal brand, to your point, I mean, brand starts where your resume ends. You don't want to become a PIP, right? Previously important person.
Yes.
And consistency in terms of putting yourself out there in the right way. And it doesn't have to be on LinkedIn. It could be at a local event, building a community.
Absolutely.
Many years ago, I mean, I contributed in a open fashion to a community that I co-founded called Amman Tech Tuesdays. It was a 10-year-long event that happened on a grassroots level on the first Tuesday of every month. We brought together enthusiasts that couldn't go and attend all these big conferences that were very expensive, and people were building amazing things but had no exposure. And that in itself built a lot of credibility and ability to connect with people and grow. And I think I found a lot of worth in that community and paid back, I think, for me and a lot of other people in many positive
Mhm.
ways along the way. So that was the way that I was consistent, at least for a very long time. 10 years is a long time. And it took a lot of
Yes.
time, but it also paid back, I think, in a way that gave me that type of value.
Beautifully said. So the reason I asked you about the three things is because I encourage everybody to do the same, because what you think about yourself on the three things, I mean, you took it from an objective side, but if I would ask the business side, are you strategic? Are you BD type? Are you visionary? So if I would ask three of my friends, and I did this exercise when I was trying to craft my personal brand. I said, well, what's my unique value proposition? And I thought of three, four different definitions for my UVP. And I asked actually seven friends and colleagues. It was an eye opener because one of the attributes was pretty common across the six or seven, but the other two were all over the place. So
Mm,
people see you differently and you see yourself differently. I mean, I was not
for sure.
aligned really of what they've seen me, but that gave me reflection on really what is my UVP or what I project to the world, because that's important in your personal brand. You need to really be different. So either it's a job interview, either for a promotion, either if you're changing careers, even if you're going to do a startup, everybody is unique and you need to really articulate your UVP. So you've done your mission. This is my ambition. This is my direction. I would drive to do that. Now, what makes you unique? And that's really where you need to articulate properly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know the interesting thing is that everybody even the closest people to you will have an opinion about you that you will never really know 100% what that is. They will live and die with that opinion. They'll never tell you what they really feel towards you sometimes, but hopefully the closest people do, and you can actually be introspective and adjust as you go because it's super important. And although it can be scary for some people, it is as you
Yes.
say, very, very important.
Yes. They'll give you the glass half full, not the glass half empty,
So,
right?
so
Now, we talked about the digital footprint. I love the work that you've done with the community. I think not everything is LinkedIn, not everything is digital. You have to be in physical activity, conferences, panels, papers, writing a newsletter, being in a community. And this is really where you can grow your brand and you become a Fuad, not Maqsam or not Kash Basha. It's a
yeah.
Fuad, and we're dealing with Fuad, and this the person has this great traits or attributes, and this is really the brand. So let's talk a bit more about, other than the community, are you engaged in panels? How do you get speaking engagement if you do?
First of all, I think, you have to make impressions in small rooms. And what I mean by that is that every meeting, every lunch date that you have with someone over business, anything of that nature, plants a small seed where people actually give you the credibility if they really see the
Mm.
authenticity beyond everything that you say. And that can, translate into connections that can actually grow you into larger community panels, what have you. I, yes, frequently get invited, thankfully, to a lot of good friends and people who trust in my opinion to contribute on panels at events or events even we host internally for the company or our community of peers in the market that we're in today. Other things that I've done, for example, to over the years, these small little contributions that balloon up into something that actually puts me on a large stage, is a TV show. I said yes to many things in my past, maybe too
Oh,
many
okay.
things. Yes. Back in 2011, I was invited by somebody I knew who was just starting a now very popular TV station, a satellite TV station out of Jordan, and wanted to have a technology TV show and knew me at the time and see me speak and be active at the events that I was conducting and things of that nature. He wanted me to actually put on a TV show. And I said, you know what? I have too much on my plate right now. And I don't think I'm a TV person, quite honestly. But he was adamant about it, and he kept coming back and saying, "Hey, listen, let's just try once." And that 20 minutes to air took me 7 hours to record. It was an amazing learning experience for me. I respected everyone in media at the time, but that taught me a lot of skills that I didn't anticipate early on. It made me much more fluent and much more open about speaking, and comfortable in front of the camera. I was giving, maybe talks to hundreds of people live, but when the red light on the camera went on and that teleprompter started working, I knew something was not computing in my mind. So I had to get used to that environment. But that was an amazing experience that got me to host many of my friends who now run unicorn companies all across the region and even have moved to the States and have done great work. And there's a lot of history there, online, buried on YouTube, but that brings back great memories and also helped me to gain credibility, and whether me as a angel investor be able to be involved in some of these businesses later on, and also help build bridges and connections between these people and some of the contacts that I've had. And I really do enjoy being a connector or a networker. I really do enjoy giving people the spotlight and showing the world great stories that might not have been uncovered properly, and remain in the shadows. That's something that gives me a lot of pride as a human being, and I think that hopefully reflects back on who I am as a person.
You are very comfortable in addressing and talking, and I don't think that you have any stage fear. Do you experience any stage fear when you first
It's a
start
great
to?
point. It's Yeah, great point. I usually go into a mode where I do have some high stress that's happening inside my mind. I'm not dysfunctional where I can't, go on, or I'm afraid, or I don't go out with full energy on stage. But every time you go on stage, even if you don't seem like you have stage fear, because it's an important engagement that you're about to perform and go out and really engage the crowd, you want to get it right. And I rehearse it in my mind many, many times. And I see myself projecting myself, in my own mind, of how I'm going to actually do the opening statement or the panel or whatever it is, if I'm hosting or emceeing a conference, for example. So I go into this very introspective mode. Because it's important, I usually do get some level of anxiety, but it subsides with practice.
Yes. That's normally the first 3, 4 minutes till you're actually
Yeah,
relaxed, and then, yeah, you see the faces, you see the
yeah,
responses.
absolutely.
Actually, for the viewer and audience as well, I've done one episode. I have the honor to speak to a guest. Her name is Etna Trainer. She's actually one of the media mogul, and she trains on media presence and everything, CEOs, ministers, and whatever. Her show was, there's a lot of material in the show that you can read, understand, or listen to and
Yeah.
learn how to manage these kind of situations. I mean, she spent an hour really giving us a masterclass on how to sit and do media, whether it's a panel, whether it's addressing a large crowd, whether it's even in crisis,
Mhm.
because you do face sometimes crisis in your business and you have to address media at some stage. So moving on from the media aspect now to sustainability. Now you're gonna see this business growing, and inshallah to grow and become a unicorn and everybody's happy. I'm trying to think here, what's your vision of the future in terms of organization? I know you're a flat organization and you have a modern approach to leadership. But at some stage, you're going to be 1,000+ employees. Now you said you have several hundred employees. How do you think of scaling up and how are you going to sustain the business? And that's really
It's interesting.
important from a personal branding perspective.
Absolutely. Now, I think getting a business from 0 to 1 and 1 to 10 are two different skills. And then taking it from 10 to 100 is a completely
Yes.
different world. There are people in the world who have been groomed or maybe have something in their DNA where they can run an 80,000 person organization. And not everyone is kind of built out for that. And I don't think it is wrong to say or shameful to say that I am actually good at a certain one of these stages and not the full journey, right? The people
Absolutely.
that you need inside your organization who will take you from 0 to 1 are different from the people who are going to take you from 1 to 10 and the people who are going to take you from 10 to 100. Many people have this transformational ability to be great leaders across all the stages. Many people come in, they're high flying executives that know exactly how to organize a company by just seeing the numbers and not caring about the everyday relationships between the people and how they're actually dealt with and what have you. And I care a lot about that. And we are very much grassroots founders and people who like the early stages of building a company out. I'm not saying that we won't take the company to wherever the journey will take us. We will definitely go down that road and we will definitely push ourselves as hard as we can. But we also know that we have to disarm this idea in our mind where if it doesn't happen with us, it shouldn't happen at all. And that's not the right type of thinking. The way that you can grow a business and what benefits you, your investors, the employees there is you have the right people for the right stage of the company in the right places. So today I have moved on actually from being the head of business at the company to being president at the company because I know that somebody else can now come in and help me
Okay.
expand even further. Right. So this actually helps us quite a bit by, starting out the company. You have a lot on your plate as a founder. You're doing everything and anything that needs to be done. And then as you go, you kind of divorce out some of these responsibilities to the right people
Hmm.
and you incentivize those people to take it to the next level. And so we're at the stage where we are taking people or bringing people on rather, who are very well-to-do groomed executives who understand our culture. And we have an interesting process to bring those people on board and actually help us. Now, when it comes to my own personal brand, in the eyes of many, if I don't go the full way and I don't make this a unicorn, they might say, wallahi, Fouad is not the person who was able to take this there, and it might be seen as a negative trait. But you have to be comfortable with what you're doing and know what is your why. And my why as a human professional in this field is to do more of these things that I'm doing and be able to expand on a life that is multifaceted and knowing that maybe the stresses at the 80,000 person mark are going to be completely debilitating to my own mind and well-being and maybe take me away from family or other opportunities that I don't want to sacrifice. And so it's extremely important for you to know where do you fit in the equation and the lifetime of the company. And if you don't go the distance, don't worry about it. Know that you have built something that is very worthy and very unlikely could have happened without you doing the things that you've done early on.
I love it, Fuad. That's a great advice. I love it. Thank you for sharing that because I think this is very valuable to our viewers and audience. It's really resonate with me because that's really the way that you would approach it. Know your limits, know where your sandbox, know what you want to do, and stay the course, and then hire your help, get somebody else to
Exactly.
take whatever they need to do, but have the vision and mission in sight and then work
Absolutely.
towards that. Very
Yeah.
good. Um,
As they say, I
yes.
mean, it takes a village to raise a child, and that is not just on you as an individual, but also on the baby that you've built, which is your company. So you have to bring in all these different stages, levels of maturity,
Yes.
to bring that up to the best case it can be. And nobody's a loser at the end, really. If you still are a shareholder in a company that becomes much larger without you, then you're still a shareholder in that company and you've made benefits somehow and you've built out a great journey for a lot of other people to grow within that organization. So it really depends on how your ego plays out in the overall grand scheme of things.
Now, you've shared a lot of advice and a lot of recipe for success. We're coming to the end of our episode. Any parting words for our viewers and audience that you want to share with them? Final wisdom?
Sure. There's a lot that can be said. I usually have a few points that have kind of guided me throughout my own career. One is learn from everyone. I had experiences in my life where the most unrelatable, expected people have taught me amazing lessons that have paid back time and time again in my career. So learn from everyone. Second one is follow no one. Really figure out that
I like
you
that.
have a story, your own story happens. If I looked at Mark Zuckerberg in college and expected I would have the same type of trajectory that he had, I probably would have failed 10 times over and been much more disappointed because expectation is not going to meet reality, and that happens in most cases. So you need to kind of look your own path and kind of ride the right story. Third one is look for patterns. There's a clear pattern in how you present yourself, how you look at the market, how you build your own brand, if you will, or build your own company brand, corporate brand altogether, and be able to ride that wave and get to the right place. And the fourth one and final one, maybe even the most important one, is work like hell. You're going to have to do a lot of work to get to any particular thing, even if you're building a blog, even if you're building a business, even if you're building a family, if you will. It's going to take a lot of work. Most people get very disappointed and discouraged at the early stages of starting something out, even if they're ambitious and they do have a lot of positivity at the early outset. But because things are going to be much more difficult than you expect, you don't see those difficulties or the types of difficulties you get to the early stages, even if you know the journey is going to be hard. But for sure, if you want to grow, then expect there's going to be some pain, but it's going to be growth disguised as that pain moving forward. And thank you very much. That's what I'd say.
Wow. Wow. A lot to take in. Fuad, really, this conversation is rich with a lot of insight. Most importantly, authentic. I admire your transparency, your authenticity, and really bold truth. Just like your journey, I think. And I want to thank you for being here, for sharing these thoughts, your journey, a lot of good advice to our viewers and audience. And here I'm going to address our viewers and listeners. If you are someone with an idea but no title, a vision but no audience, remember what Fuad shared today with you. You don't need permission to start shaping your story. Don't follow anyone, as he mentioned. Chart your own journey. You just need the courage to show up, speak with purpose, and keep showing up again. So if this episode inspired you, share it with a friend who's building something in silence. Let's turn quiet potential into visible impact. Fuad, thank you again for reimagining with us. Until next time, stay bold, stay visible, and keep reimagining you. Thank you.